Hi guys, welcome to another hair tutorial. This time we're going to be looking at ash blonde. You can do quite a few layers to make it quite a dark ash blonde, or you can keep it to 1 and 2 layers to give a light to medium ash blonde. So it's very versatile. We're using our Prismacolor pencils. The illustration is MariolaBudek from her Wedding Hair Inspirations. And the 4 pencils that we've got are Sandbar Brown, which is 1094. We've got our French Grey in the 50%, which is 1072. We have 20% French Grey, 1069. And lastly, for our highlighted sections, we've got white, which is 938. And I'll probably be doing 2 videos, like 2 parts. I'll do in this one probably the crown and some of her plaits. And then in the second part, we'll look at this sort of straight section, a little bit curly, but it's basically a straight section, so we'll do that in part 2. So to start off with, one I've prepared earlier, and let's zoom in so that you can see. I think that's good for both of us. And we're starting, I do darkest to lightest, as you probably know. And we're starting with our Sandbar Brown. And I'm just going to map out the area of her crown and where the first plait sort of comes in. So it's just a real light pressure of the Sandbar Brown, and I'm just going around just to map out the section that I want to do first. So just bear with me while I concentrate slightly. And then just the other side as well. Okay, so that's the first section that we're going to be looking at. And taking our Sandbar Brown, what I'm first going to do is I'm going to go around that section and I'm going to cover the grayscale that's there. So the strokes that Mariola's done, I'm going to cover them with the Sandbar Brown. Now, this ash colour is created by using a neutral cold brown and a grey tone, a brown toned grey, which is the French grey. So it's those 2 colours in combination which creates the ash colour that we're looking for. And as I said, you can do multiple layers to make it quite a dark ash blonde, or you can stick to 1 and 2 layers, and that will give you a light to medium ash blonde. So it's really what you're after in whatever picture that you're doing. You can darken it up if you wish to. Just do these sections here. And I'm just using medium pressure on the pencil because we're going to be doing a couple of layers. It's just a medium pressure. I'm not saturating the paper by pressing too hard, because then it won't accept any more pigment from the pencils and we lose the ability to layer. So just a fairly, I'd say even more of a light pressure. I think you might have heard me say grazing the page. That's pretty well the pressure that I'm after. Maybe a little bit harder or firmer pressure towards the darker areas, which is where, you know, so this plait is coming out of, and then up into this section where the shine is, I'm laying off the pressure of the pencil. Now, the good news is that although this is going to be in 2 parts, I've got my video camera. I haven't worked out how to use it yet, which is why I'm still using my iPad. But we won't have this continuous problem of me having to cut the videos short because my iPad's out of storage. So that's going to be good. Going to get to do full pictures and not have to worry about how long they're going to go. Not that I want to bore you guys, but it'll be good to not have to worry about the time. Now that we've done that once over with Sandbar Brown, we're looking at your 50% French grey. And we're going to go over the Sandbar Brown, the neutral brown, with the brown toned grey, which is French grey. And it's these 2 pencils together that give you that ash colour that we're looking for. You're going to struggle if you're using polychromos and you want me to give you a comparison sort of chart or something. There's not a French grey in the polychromos. You've only got your cold and your warm greys. So to give you a comparison, look, you'd be looking at a neutral brown, no warm browns, so you don't want any gold or any of those warm tones. So you'd be going more towards maybe nougat. Keep away from your burnt anything like your burnt sienna or your burnt umber, any of those. Even your brown ochres and things along those lines, they've got too much gold in them. So you want a really neutral brown, a cold brown. Nougat's probably going to be the best one. And the greys, well, you don't have a brown toned grey in polychromos. So you would go towards your cold greys. You wouldn't use your warm greys at all. So you would get your best result in polychromos by using, I suppose, that, you know, your cold greys and a neutral brown, but it's not going to be the same. They don't have the same tones that the Prismacolors have. You really need a French grey, because French grey has a lot of brown in it, and that's really what you're after for creating an ash tone to your hair. Alright, so I've gone sort of over, just fine tuning with your two colours. So the ash is there now. And now you're just going to want to go through and do your highlights and your shine. So taking our 20% in our French grey, what I'm going to do is going into these areas. Not worried about the flicks now because you won't see them. And I just want to, the ends of that Sandbar brown and the 50%, I'm just doing a light blend together of them. So still light pressure. But I'm just blending the ends a little bit, preparing it for the white. Because if you put white next to something that's quite dark, if you put white next to, say, this section which is quite dark, it's going to stand out probably more than I want it to. So that's why I'm using the 20% just to blend out some of the colour. And preparing it for the white highlights that I'm going to pop in. I did expect to get a video out to you guys a lot sooner, but unfortunately I had a flare-up of my chronic pain, and that makes pretty much everything impossible when I'm in a flare-up. Not even colouring can get me out of a flare-up. I'm used to pain. I've got chronic pain, so I'm used to it, and that's why I colour a lot, because it distracts me from it. But a flare-up is a whole different beast. When I'm in one of those, all I can do is lay on the couch, basically, and take a lot of medication. So I'm not 100%, but I'm getting back to normal. For me, normal's being in about, I don't know, about a 3 or 4 pain continuously, something like that. That's normal for me. But a flare-up gets to around about 8 or 9 pain-wise, and I just collapse pretty much. So it hasn't lasted a whole heap of time. I've had flare-ups last for, oh God, weeks. So this one's only been a couple of days, which is good. All right, our white, we've prepared it with the 20%. Now we're using our white into those areas that I want to highlight. A little bit down there. Alright, now as per usual, after one layer, I'm just going to stand up a bit, and I'm just going to say what areas I have to change or I want to change. So I'm just going to go Sandbar brown. I'm going to darken those areas up a slight bit. can't stand up for very long at the moment. Oh. Okay. There were just areas that I needed to darken slightly. I'm going to have to sit down. Oh, God, that still hurts. And I'm just going to go once more around with the 50%. Yeah. If you're having trouble in any of your blending, take your pressure off your pencil. You might be putting a little bit too much pressure on the pencil, which means you are saturating the paper. So then when you're using another colour, it's not blending properly, if that makes sense, because there's too much pigment on the paper. So just really lay off the pressure. You can always add more layers. You can always add more colour, but it's really, really hard to take colour out. Once it's there, it's pretty well there. And once you get into rubbing out areas and things like that, oh, you're pretty well doomed. At that point, especially using thin paper like I do, I usually chuck it. Start again, they say. And you don't want to do that in one of your really good colouring books. So a little bit of patience if you're having trouble with blending. Light layers, multiple layers, and build up the colour, because it will blend. Two colours will blend together if you build up light layers of them. They will blend. Alright, so I think that's pretty well. I'm happy with that. Might do a little bit more of the French. Just into that shine area. But that's a good start. I could keep going forever with this, so I've just got to know when to stop. Alright, I'll stop now. Alright, so now we're looking at plaited sections. So firstly, I'm going to map out this section, Sandbar brown. Oh, the other thing I just wanted to say, got a couple of comments. If you're used to doing your hair colours light to dark and you're comfortable doing it that way, please continue doing that. You don't have to try my method out or you know, change your style or the way that you're used to doing your hair. I'd just be really happy if you took the colours and used them, whatever, you know, combo we're looking at. This is just the way I've always done hair, darkest to lightest. I don't think there's not a right or a wrong way about it. So if you're used to doing it light to dark, please continue doing it that way. All you'd be doing is doing a reverse of what I'm doing. So you would just be using your white in your highlight section first, and then you'd be building it out. So then you'd do your 20% on top of, the sort of the shine section, just extending it. Then you do your French grey and then your Sandbar on top of that. So if you're used to doing it that way, please keep doing it that way. All that you need with this particular hair colour is knowing that the two colours, your two Prismacolor pencils, need to be laid on top of each other to create the ash look of an ash blonde. That's basically what you can, if you take that away from this tutorial, then I'm really happy with that. Don't go changing things that you've been doing for years just because I do it differently. That's not the reason I'm doing these tutorials. All I'm doing is showing you some combinations and the way that I do it. It doesn't mean that you have to change the way that you've been doing things right the way through. So that was just mapping out and going through with our Sandbar brown. And now to cement that ash colour in the blonde, we're going to go 50%, and we're just going to go back over that area. So please just continue doing it the way that you've done it. Don't think that you have to change it because I do it differently. There's no right or wrong. No, it's whatever you're comfortable with. And if you've always done hair light to dark, then continue to do it. Okay, so I'm just going into those darker areas where the plait meets the other plait, the other part of the plait. Going over the Sandbar so that we're creating that ash colour or that ash tone. And we're leaving the middle section free for our shine and our highlights basically. So now we've got the two highlight colours. So firstly, our 20%. Again, I am just using that as a little bit of a blender pencil and just really rounding off those ends of the Sandbar and the 50% French. So that it's nice and light for the white and it's not going to be as stark. Okay, now I can go back in with my last colour, the white, and I'm just going in to that shine area and the area that I want highlighted. I think there's one down here, there'll be one here, one in there, the middle section, a little bit there, into here. Okay. bringing our darkest colours again, or I better sharpen them. Try to keep points on your pencil, guys. It's much easier for blending when you've got a sharp point. Alright, and we're just going in to do one more layer, Sandbar brown. Just to darken up where the plait's meeting the other plait or her hairline. I can't remember what I've told you and what I haven't. This has been about the 4th time I've tried to do this video, so I'm a little bit confused with what I've told you. If I didn't tell you in this version of the video, I've got my video camera, which I'm very excited about. I think I did tell you. I just have to work out how to use it. And French grey 50%. And then we'll be cooking with oil, as they say. Okay, so just going to stand up, just double check, probably maybe a little bit more there. You just do this part to your taste. If you don't want as much shine, you just bring those colours a little bit more in, but I'm fairly happy with that. Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's bringing that ash tone out. Now we'll go into part of the darker area. Oops, moved that. So the darker areas are going to be in here, because this plait is obviously further away from her hair, the flat hair. So these sections in here are going to be darker, where they're going to be this part of the plait is sticking out more, and obviously these parts of her pony are going to be above that as well. So it's going to be quite dark in here in this section, and all I'm doing is Sandbar brown, and I'm just going to go section by section here. Just top and bottom. And just darken it where I need to, which is under that part of the plait. Sorry guys, I'm concentrating a little bit there. Just want to get that right first up. And then just in there. Alright, so that was with the Sandbar. Sort of mapped out that section. Now I can go back over with the 50% to bring that ash tone to that section. And again, just top and bottom. Top and bottom. But making sure that you're covering the neutral grey. So we're bringing out more of that ash tone. Okay, there's a couple sections here where it's going to be quite a bit darker. Your highlight colours again, 20% French grey, and I'm probably just going to cover that one and this one completely in. This one I am going to leave some room for a little bit of the white, and these ones are going to have a little bit of the white in the middle, or sort of running sort of down. So just preparing it for the white. Blending those colours together a little bit. And now back over with our white. A little bit of white goes a long way. Okay, have another little bit of look. And I'm going to do my darkest colours again. So I'm going to go in with the Sandbar first. And into this section, Sandbar. And just put a couple more strokes through these sections, just so that you can see it's not one big section of hair, there's multiple little sections. So if we bring the Sandbar sort of right down, and the same with our 50%. That highlights that there's sections of hair, it's just not one big section. I hope that makes sense the way I'm explaining it. Into those much darker areas. And then that. Okay, again, just going to stand up for a second. And just see if there's any areas where I want to do a little bit more, maybe a little bit more. I've got the Sandbar. Just darkening those up a little bit. But overall, I'm quite satisfied with that. I can keep going as always, but let's have a bit of a look. Okay, so that's starting to come together. We've got the ash tone that I was looking for, laying one pencil over the other. We've got our highlights, which you can always darken if you don't like them, but I like to keep them in, and then perhaps when I come back to it, I might look at it again and go, no, I don't like these sort of sections, I'll darken them. You can always do that. As I said, it's harder to take colour out. I'm quite happy with the shine in there from the white, so that's quite good. And I would just keep doing that. So over this section, do exactly the same. This plait is going to be exactly the same as this plait. And then we're going to be looking at, you know, this section. So in the second video that I do, let me just take you right the way out. In part 2, I think you've got an idea of how you know, this section comes up. So what we're going to be doing in part 2 is looking at same colour. We'll just still do the ash, but how to incorporate that into sort of, it's relatively straight hair. How do we cope with straight hair? Where do we put the darkest and lightest bits? There's a little bit of a wave in there. So we might sort of do, hopefully, this section in part 2, and then hopefully I'll have my camera up and running, yay, and we won't have to cut these videos short. So I hope you learned something today, at least the colour combination, and I'll post part 2 fairly quickly. Yeah, I'll maybe work on the rest of it tomorrow. Alright, thanks for listening guys. I hope you've learned something, and I'll see you next video. Bye.